Hi, my beautiful stars. So, this is the look I'm bringing you today. It is my interpretation of the old school Fat Chance belly dance style aesthetics. It is so mystical and beautiful, and I think um, that's the reason why we all fell in love with this style to begin with. So, let's start with this very tiring but rewarding process. We're gonna take, as usual, just an eyelid base, an eyeshadow base. I'm using two colors just to create a skin-like color. I'm just looking to make it one tone lighter than my skin tone. That's gonna be enough for the look we're doing today because we're using only neutral colors. So as usual, just blend it with your bare clean fingers and then smooth everything out with a beauty sponge. So I'm gonna stick with the same color palette that Fat Chance Belly Dance recommends in their video. That's the volume 2 video. It's dedicated for costume and makeup. So yes, I'm gonna use for my outer corner a neutral shade of brown. It is a mid-tone to dark tone brown, and it's only to add a little depth to the look. And I practically actually covered my full lid with that shade of brown because the actual deep function is gonna be given by that black eyeshadow that I'm applying right there. That's the actual outer corner. Then to define the crease, again with the blending brush, I'm gonna use a mid-tone brown. Mainly this work is only done to define the crease. We're not doing any major blending work. It is helping a little bit to blend the work that we did before, but remember, this is only to create a crease, at least for the moment. Now we are gonna start to blend the crease. I'm gonna use another mid-tone brown. It's not a brown per se, it would be more like a flesh color. And it's very beautiful to create a transition between a mid-tone brown and your brow bone highlight that is going to be applied at the very end. So for my inner corner, I want to use that golden pressed glitter. It's not actually a pressed glitter, that's a foiled shadow. But it's very similar to a pressed glitter. It's very oily, so I like to use a glitter glue underneath to make it adhere better and to prevent it from creasing because it tends to crease. But I really love the finish and the texture it gives to the lid. You can see it right there. And it's always better to apply that type of eyeshadow with your fingertips. That's gonna give you the best payoff for that type of shadow. Any foiled super extra metallic eyeshadow usually has like a very emollient base to give it that texture, so it's always gonna be best to apply with the fingertips. And actually the only reason why I'm using a brush right there in that step of the look is just to reach at the points where it's very difficult for my fingertips to reach. And finally, don't forget to highlight your tear duct area. It gives a very beautiful effect, and we are going to use a little bit of an extension in the eyeliner work. So yes, remember to cover your tear duct. That way you cover more space and you make your eyes look bigger. Now we're going to take a fluffier blending brush and we're going to go back to that brown. We are going to tie everything together. So we're starting from the black and we are deepening a little bit of the crease, especially at the outer edge of the crease. And we apply more pressure at the outer edge and less pressure as we go inwards. Then we go and blend everything together with a lighter color. Now we are intensifying the black with the same brush. And again, we're gonna take another blending brush and a warmer brown to give it more warmth precisely to the look. That's gonna tie everything together. It's gonna make it look more beautiful. We go back to the same brush that we used for the transition, just to make everything fuse together. Now again with the brown, we make the same work that we did before. We start to blend the black into the gold very lightly, and we make it look seamless and beautiful. Now we have to clean, of course, the under eye. So as you can see, I cleaned everything, and I use it also to define that extension. And now we're gonna line. You don't always need to use a tape to create a very sharp line or a very sharp wing for your liner. So this is a good way to achieve it. That's the reason why I'm not using any surgical tape for this look, so that you can see you can also achieve a very pretty and sharp line without it. You use it as a guideline after you clean it and just follow the lines. Of course, it takes a lot of pulse, but eventually you will get it. Every makeup artist develops it with time. And now remember that we use for lining gel eyeliner, and it's always better to set it with eyeshadow. So that is what I'm doing right now. I set it. That makes it look, first of all, more intense, but then the second benefit is that it gives you more lasting power. I just I got a little liner in my nose. Now we extend the inner corner. It's a beautiful way to make your eyes look bigger and to give you that very Arabic oriental shape that we aim. And you can also use your gel liner to line your waterline. That's what I'm doing right now. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish the other side outside the camera. Remember to coat your eyelashes, and that's going to help you to remove any fallout. And of course, it's going to help you blend them better when you apply your falsies, your false eyelashes. Give them a very, very good coat. Remember to do zigzag motions and then cover them from underneath, but also from the top. And now we go for the face, but remember we have to wash our hands first. I'm applying, after I wash my hands, a primer, and then I decided to try that foundation for this particular look, but I ended up not liking it at all. So I went back to my full coverage Juvia's Place. It is always better to use a very full coverage foundation for stage. To me, it's like a must. And as I always say, since we are using a full coverage foundation, you don't actually need a concealer. So I'm with my bare fingers applying the same foundation as if it was concealer, just to make a base for the work that we're gonna do for the lower lid. I am gonna do an open liner. That's actually called open double liner. So it is important that we have a pretty and uniform base all throughout our face. So after I apply my foundation, I always like to smooth it out with a beauty sponge. If you have seen my previous videos, you know I like to do this because I love the finish it gives. Now I set my foundation with loose powder, preferably just translucent powder. It's gonna give you lasting power, and it's gonna give you a beautiful light canvas to work with. Remember, it's always easier to go from light to dark. So that's what I always prefer to do. I apply powder with a puff. I always do that. It's the best way to set your foundation. So I cannot recommend these two enough. But now we are going to work in the lower lid portion of this look, and this is where I love to give it my personal touch. Even though Fat Chance Bellydance recommends only a color palette, I love, this is like a trade mark of mine, a very aqua teal eyeliner for the lower lash line. So I use this in my favor. This is my personal trade. It is something I love. It's something I identify with. People who knows me from using this makeup trick because I love the way it looks on me. So I recommend you guys using something to make it personalized, to make it your own. So in my case, I'm gonna use this tealish color. You don't need to use the teal color. You can use any color you like, or you can just keep it neutral if you want. You don't need to add any pop of color. Okay, and just remember to use the eyeliner as a base because it's a creamy product, and then you go and set it with a powder product. I am cleaning the fallout, and then I'm using a bigger blending brush to blend everything together. I just go throughout that line, but I leave that space open, and this is where I am creating another lash line. So this is where we create that double liner effect. We create a fake lash line with eyeliner. You can extend it as much as you want. I always recommend you to use another brush like the one I'm using right now because it's smaller and it gives you more space to detail. So you can start and sketch with the brush of your preference, the angled one, but then the very detailed work, try to do it with a detail brush. Now, as always, every cream product that you use for stage makeup is always better if you set it with a powder. So even though it's a small area you're working in and it's a very small line, don't underestimate it. Set it as well. And now we're going to use those same colors we used for the upper lid, the same brown color and the same warm brown color, to create a transition and to blend that fake lash line that we just created. So we start with a darker toned, and then we finish blending that darker brown with a warmer shade of brown. That's gonna help us make it look a little bit more natural, and it's gonna give it warmth. Not to mention that's gonna make it look more polished. That's important to me. So yes, anything that makes it look polished and gives it a professional look, I'm always up for it, even though it's not going to be noticeable from a stage. Now, to give it the final touch to that open space in between the lash lines, I am going to take the same highlighter color that I used before, just to blend and to diffuse that teal color into a very light highlighter transition. And now to finish the eyeshadow work, we're gonna go back to that same warm brown color and intensify it. And we give it the final touch with some very beautiful eyelashes. These eyelashes I made myself. I made them from gathering different eyelashes. If you guys want to know how to do that, you can leave it in the comments down below, and I can dedicate a video to that. But sometimes you don't find the exact shape of eyelash that you want, so that's when these tricks come handy. And of course, as I always say, eyebrows are super important, so dedicate them time. I'm pretty sure you guys already know my technique. I like to use an ombre effect, so I use shadow for eyebrows. I use it dry for the first third of the brows, and then I use it wet for the second and the last third of the brow to make it more intense. And of course I always extend it. And then I take the same brush that I applied the eyeshadow base with, and I use that excess to clean that brow bone. And that way I use it to carve the eyebrow, and I also use it to create a base for the highlighter for my brow bone. And then of course you tie everything up together by blending again with the same brush you use for the transition. Now we're gonna move on into the contouring of the face. I'm gonna use a contour powder and that brush that I love so much, because the bristles of the brush are very well packed together, and it helps you with the intensity of the product. When you apply the product, it's very intense, and if for the shape, it gives you a very sharp line. So I am only using the very basic zones for contouring: cheekbone, temple, and jawline, as I'm doing right now. And I'm using the brush to pack the color, but also to drag it and then blend it. And then what I also love to do is just to follow my natural lines of my face. So for example, if I have a very defined apple of the cheek, I am gonna do that motion that you see right there, just to define that apple of the cheek a little bit more. And the forehead, I talked about it before. I have a very, I have a big forehead, so I like to go along all of my hairline to make it a little bit smaller. And I also give dimension to my jawline. I hide a little bit of my double chin, and I follow the curves of my chin, as you saw right there. Then, as I am a little lazy when changing brushes, I am going to use that same one to do the contour of my nose. I am just going to be a little bit careful about the pressure I apply the product with. And then I move on into the bronzer. Remember that this step is important for me because it helps me create a transition, a beautiful transition into the blush. And it also helps you blend that contour work that you just did. So I apply it with a powder brush, and of course you apply a mid-tone brown to create a transition. Now, you also should know by now that I love to apply a base for my blush, and I do so by using a cream blush. I apply it with stippling motions just to make sure not to drag that powder that it's already applied. That way I create a base and I make the blush more intense, and I also make it last longer. So I'm gonna use two different shades of blushes. The blushes that I'm using are texturized, so they should help with giving dimension. I'm gonna use the lighter shade of the blush in towards the center of the face, the apples, the nose, the chin, and the forehead, and then the darker one towards the outer portion of my face. And then I'm gonna use that same technique, you have seen me do that before, for my highlighter. Look at the difference it makes. It makes it pop so much. And I'm using that very light color only in the high point of the highlighter area. I use it a little bit with my finger to highlight my nose, and then I'm gonna go to the other side. Look at the difference right there. It makes it look 3D. It really makes such a big difference. Of course, it's gonna emphasize every pore that you have. If you have a little pimple, like you can see right there, I have some like a little rush, and it makes it look a little bit more apparent, but that's not gonna be important for stage. It's not gonna show. The important thing to achieve with a stage makeup is dimension. I cannot address this enough. And then of course the final step for the makeup portion is the lips. We're gonna always line our lips. I'm gonna use a red lipstick because it's the lipstick shade recommended by Fat Chance Bellydance. So I overline the lips as I usually do, and I extend my lips toward the edges. Now, to make the lipstick last longer, I also fill in my lips a little bit with the lip liner. And then I'm gonna use a mixture of two different shades of red of liquid lipstick, because it gives you again more lasting power and more intensity of color. So the first shade that I'm using is a deep red. It's a very beautiful red. And then I'm gonna also use this to define and to go over that line work that I did with the liner. And then I'm gonna go with the lighter shade of red only in the center of my lips. I like to blend the liquid lipsticks together with my bare finger. And then this is another trick to apply that golden effect that I used in the previous video, but this time I used directly a pigment. It is always better to use pigments. Remember when I said to you that I cannot recommend you enough to invest on pigments? This is the reason why. It's the best payoff. It's the most beautiful thing you can use. It always gives you the most payoff. Now, this whole portion of the look is entirely optional, especially with everything that's going on currently regarding the culture appropriation issues, the whole debate that was very recently generated about this whole tribal things. But I choose to do it because it is what was done for the old school look. So I'm gonna show you a little bit of what I like to do, and if you want I can talk to you about the meaning. Sometimes we don't remember that as dancers we take inspiration in certain elements from different cultures around the world, and we use them just in our favor to create our aesthetics, our looks, and the way we want to portray ourselves. It makes us look a little bit more powerful, more mystical. That's always going to depend on what you want to achieve. So many tattoos, face tattoos, have meaning. For example, the one that I'm doing in my chin is inspired in a face tattoo called Skeletons. It's a snake skeleton and it represents a holy person, and also has many magical and medicinal properties. And like I said, I use it as inspiration. It's not exactly as the one I'm drawing in my chin, but it's very similar in shape. And this one belongs to the tribes from the north of Africa. I'm not gonna call it by name because it can be considered discriminatory. So like I said, we just use, sometimes they don't have a specific meaning for dancers, sometimes they do. Many dancers get inspiration from certain tribes around the world, and they use a specific tattoo to represent something. Remember, the face tattoos for tribes can mean many things. They can mean status, they can mean the tribe you belong to, they can mean many different things. So many people are opting not to use it at the moment to avoid getting into this whole issue with appropriation. The same thing happens with the bindis that step that I'm doing right now is applying a bende. Many people take it as offensive because they actually believe we are representing those cultures. We do not. Like I said, we only take some elements of those cultures as inspiration for our makeup and costuming, but we do not whatsoever represent those cultures in our dancing. The dance form we do and we practice, it's a very specific one, and it has nothing to do with tribe cultures around the world. We do not represent them. The shape that I'm doing right there is also very similar to the skeleton shape that I did in my chin. It's a different one. It looks like a fish tail. I really like it. I find it very beautiful, and I haven't decided if I want to just miss this portion of the makeup for our dancing, because I find it so inspirational and so beautiful. So yeah, I guess it's all matter of personal preference. So you guys can take it or leave it if you want. As you can see, I am using different tools. I'm using brushes, liner brushes. I'm using toothpicks, and I'm also using these Chinese sticks if I want to create like a bigger, rounder shape. And I don't know if you noticed the red dots in the apples of my chin. I did them with the end of a lip liner. Depending on the tribe, facial tattoos can be used to make the person more beautiful or to make it less beautiful. If you want to make a person more beautiful, is of course with the purpose to get her husband, a future partner. And if you want to make her less beautiful, is with the purpose to protect her from bad spirits or potential foreigners. They can represent the age, they can represent your marital status, if you're married, if you're single. If you are a man, it can represent the battles you've been in, and I find it fascinating and beautiful. So this is the whole portion of the turban. It is very tiring to put together, but it's so beautiful and it's so worth it. So I use two black turbans to create a base, and then I make sure I wrap them very well around my head. Remember that the black turban is gonna be your base, so it has to be super stable for everything that's gonna come up next. Now for this specific style, I like to use a different shawl, generally with texture, with color, with shine, to make it pop. And then I wrap it very simply around. Yeah, it's tiring. And then of course you have to pin everything together. Remember, the pins and the safety pins are your best friends. And now the whole process of decorating the turban starts. which I find so amusing. I love it. I enjoy it so much. So you're gonna see me try different things and then stick into the ones I feel the most comfortable with. You can take any element that you have and that you like and that you just wanna show off for some reason, and add it to your headpiece in this case. So yes, you're gonna see me apply tassels, medallions, coins, and also a little bit of jewelry. I'm gonna leave you to it so that you can just enjoy the process. And then I tie everything up with some flowers because I love flowers. So yes, I'm gonna let you to it so that you can enjoy the process of me deciding where to put things and how to put things. Now, another beautiful element for the old school Fat Chance belly dance style costuming is the veil. We use it after we apply the whole turban. We just stick it to the back of the turban and use it to cover ourselves. And then when we dance, we can stick it to the hips and then leave the body uncovered to show every movement. I so adore this. I know it's tiring, it takes time, but it's so beautiful. I really love this. I love it. It's beautiful. It's so mystical. It's magical. And it's very empowering. I mean, look at that. How much I changed from the start. I love the way it turned out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, if you have any requests, please just feel free to leave them down below in the comments, and I'm gonna do my best to reply and to help you guys with it. Take care, everybody. I hope you like this as much as I did. Love you. Bye bye.